Heading off to Lincoln for the day, stop overnight, and maybe a stop or two on the way. Today's visit is to the Southwell Workhouse, a Victorian workhouse. I think it's probably one of the first workhouses. From the early 17th century, with the Elizabethan Poor Law, the parish had to look after the mentally ill, the destitute, the work shy, and this reverend came along in the 1820s and decided that it would be cheaper to provide a place for them to live and a place for them to eat rather than giving them money and handouts. And that's really how the workhouse system began. The idea behind it was that you would not want to go there voluntarily because the conditions would be harsh. You'd be fed, but you'd have to work hard, and it was to act as a deterrent. They didn't want people freeloading off the local taxpayers. One of the jobs was oakum picking, which was essentially getting bits of rope and unpicking them into their individual fibres, and they were then sold on and they were used in shipbuilding, mixed with tar to seal the hull of the wooden ships. This is where the able-bodied men would eat their meals. Most of the work done in the workhouse was actually maintaining the workhouse, painting the walls, looking after the gardens and so on, rather than sort of mindless, pointless tasks that you might get in a prison. This is the kitchen. So inmates got a gruel or thin porridge for breakfast and for supper, 2 pints for men, and then most of the rest of the week potatoes, meat 3 times a week, or broth or something like that. So this is the oven where they bake the bread for the workhouse. It's a staple diet, of course, for the inmates. As you can imagine, they're quite strict. Half an hour for breakfast, an hour for lunch and half an hour for supper. Had to go to bed at 8 o'clock in the summer and so on. I do like this one though. Any of the poor guilty of being in any way saucy or abusive to the master or matron shall be punished. This is another dormitory, left pretty much as they found it. This is one fireplace. I don't know if you can see on the camera, but on the floor, the shiny patches are where the beds used to be. So you can count the number of beds. Because of course the floor hadn't been walked on in those places. This building behind me is the infirmary, which was built in the 1870s. As time went on, pressure was put on the government to cater more for the ill, which of course the original workhouse didn't do. This room is where they keep the bodies of the dead until they could be collected for a parish burial. I think there's someone here waiting to be collected. I'm about 10 kilometres from Lincoln, just riding along this lovely cycle path, which I think, if I remember, goes all the way in, and that's where I'm going to stay tonight. I'm in Lincoln now, just early evening, so just have a little stroll around. Behind me is the castle. It started in 1068 and after the Norman conquest, although of course it would have been a wooden mutton bailey then. So a copy of the Magna Carta was brought here in the 13th century. So that's the name of this pub, and I might as well go in and test the local wares.